Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and we got the first sneak peek for next week's main update, the December update. A star-shaped portal just opened, and she's stepping through. America Chavez is coming. No hints here, no surprises, no pulling punches, just straight to the info. New uniform, new tier 4, staying as a combat type. All of that is confirmed either through text or through the video itself that's playing above me right now. And this first uniform, this first reveal, does pretty much lock in the Young Avengers for the next update, but there is a nice surprise here that I do want to talk about that we didn't mention in the last video when we talked about the Young Avengers. That could mean a very significant villain is finally going to be getting a tier 4. So this is going to be pretty interesting. Over on the forums, a tough superhero who smashes star-shaped portals to travel across dimensions has arrived to save a new multiverse, the Interdimensional Traveler. Check out the new look, uniform, and abilities, tier 4, of this hero who possesses immense strength and speed along with the power of dimensional travel. So Chavez is getting a tier 4, another combat tier 4, probably for PvP, but possibly for other content. This is also only our second female combat tier 4, so that is a big deal, particularly for those of you who did not care to invest in Crescent tier 4, and I can totally understand that. Seasonal uniform, yucky, don't want to pay real money for 1 day of ABX. I fully understand you. Chavez could position herself as a viable alternative just on the basis of having tier 4. Now we'll have to wait and see because, as we know, Crescent only scored a little bit higher than Hope, who was an even more expensive sort of premium character, and Hope couldn't even get to tier 4. So the devs really have a choice here on what they want to do, and I don't expect necessarily Chavez to replace or compete with Crescent. It would be nice if she did, don't get me wrong, but on the other hand, we know that Chavez has the 40% HP support on her uniform to all allies and the 50% reflect reduction to all allies, which makes her very good as a support for things like Otherworld Battle, even Alliance Conquest, Team Battle Arena, maybe once in a blue moon timeline battle. But she is a very useful support in that regard to tackle reflect teams. And so, and you know what, back in the day, I will say this, back in the day before tier 4, her third skill, I think it's her third skill, counterattack, iframe, ignore, punch, was actually pretty good. And I recall getting some one-shot kills on some metas at the time before tier 4 just rewrote the rules of the game for PvP. So yeah, Chavez could come back in a major way. This is a pretty nice tier 4 to kick things off. Hopefully we get 1 or 2 more tier 4s. We get some juicy stuff. But what I want to dive into now is the idea of the rest of the Young Avengers. Because if you take a look at the rest of the Young Avengers, there are some really good options to get uniforms, to get upgrades, to get tier 4s. So first of all, we'll just go through the sneak peek really quickly. It's just your standard, you know, cutscene with music, your slideshow. She's a combat type. It's confirmed there. Getting some hydration before we continue, and then her. I mean, it's confirmed right here. New uniform and tier 4. They're just like, hey, listen, here, just take it. Just take it. Take the fries and go, man. Take the fries and go. Now, when you search up the new Avenger, the Young Avengers, I may have called them the new Avengers a few times, but no, when you look up the Young Avengers, you're gonna get a lot of Wiccan. You're gonna get a lot of Hulkling, particularly Emperor Hulkling, and I think these two are kind of must-haves. I think Young Avengers update without Wiccan and Hulkling, especially since they skipped Agatha all along, I think that would be a mistake. It would be an easy layup to give Wiccan and Hulkling. Maybe they'll be the mid-month. That's what I'd say. But it'd be an easy layup to give them both tier 4 at the same time and both give them new uniforms. I think they deserve it. They've been in the game for almost 10 years. They've been in the game for 9 years, and they've never gotten a uniform. It's pretty embarrassing for that. You know, this is singularity levels of ignorance. You know, in the meantime, Squirrel Girl has 2 or 3 uniforms. We already talked about Gwenpool. It's pretty embarrassing. So I, for one, I know he was a meme a long time ago, but I'm really looking forward to a Hulkling tier 4 that makes him really strong for either PvE or PvP. And it's interesting because, you know, he's a combat hero alien, so he has boots to fill. Wiccan as well. as a blast mail hero. We'll wait and see if he's PvE or PvP, but they can really do a lot of interesting stuff with their kits to make them meta and make them relevant. I mean, their kits are just so old. There's really not much to pull from. But yeah, there's actually fun fact for Wiccan specifically. He has a line in his passive that talks about Pierce duration, and some people thought when Pierce came to the game in the form of cards, right, additional Pierce damage, some people thought that Wiccan's passive would buff your Pierce damage, and that's not the case. That is not what it does. But I'm just going to load up the game here really quickly to show you guys what I'm talking about, because it's actually pretty funny that people had that impression and that it actually has nothing to do with Pierce at all. So over here on Wiccan's kit, you can see here it says applies to all allies, ignores target's dodge rate by 20%. So he's actually kind of like a pseudo support. And then it says 1 second increase to the duration of Pierce, 1 second increase to the duration of Snare. And these are basically just effects that you can apply on enemies. And you can see he has Snare there on his second skill. And I believe he doesn't have Pierce. He only has Snare. He has Snare on his second skill and his fifth skill. But basically, it just increases the duration of the debuff by 1 second. This was not bad 9 years ago when no one had debuff cleanse or debuff removal. And so you could snare someone and you couldn't really get crowd control time on your cards. So a 3-second snare, you could turn a 3-second snare into a 4-second snare, and you could infinitely chain snare enemies if you had enough cooldown or if you had the right timing. That was 9 years ago. The game has evolved a little bit since then. As we know, it's evolved a lot. So yeah, they're going to have to do something way new with this kit. But I, for one, am excited and looking forward to and hoping and crossing my fingers for both Wiccan and Hulkling to get something. I think now is the time. 100%. 100%. But in addition to Hulkling and Wiccan, who I think absolutely need to get something, I also wanted to bring up Novar, aka Marvel Boy. So we actually talked about Novar when the Captain Marvel movie came out, because of course Novar is the character played by Jude Law. This is apparently his younger version called Marvel Boy, and he just has sort of your typical Captain Marvel type powers. He uses these weird guns. I don't really know a lot about him, to be honest with you, but this could be a possible new character, I guess. Novar, along with Speed, which is kind of like it's Wiccan's brother. It's sort of basically like a younger version of Quicksilver. I don't really see these characters being added to the game necessarily, but I guess they could be added as new characters. Marvel Future Fight has recommitted after a couple of years ago where they stopped doing new characters. They've recommitted to doing new characters. So these are the only two that I really see as realistic adds as new characters. The other one that I don't think will be a new character, but rather a uniform, is the one that I'm least looking forward to, and that's Loki. So there is like a young Loki, Icole. I think it's also either the one that's in the show, the season 1 of Loki, or it's at least supposed to be based on that. The season 1 Loki variant is based on this version of Loki, which I think is that guy right there. Anyways, he is a young Avenger. And you can see him here also holding Thor's Mjolnir. And so he could be a new uniform for Loki. The reason why I really don't want this to be the case is because de-aging a character for a uniform is kind of weird, 1. And 2, we just replaced Loki for Hades in those villain days. At least I did. Most players did. I really don't want to go back to Loki. Please don't make us go back to Loki. I'll do anything. Please, I'll do anything. Just make Loki PvP or something else. This is also not even the uniform we wanted for Loki. We wanted God of Stories. The cat is obviously way out of the bag at this point. But there's so many cooler looks for Loki. Turning him into a tweener, it's just not fun. You know, whatever. The only way it'd be fun is if he's good for PvP, and then you could beat the crap out of him with Wolverine or somebody else. Then that would be funny, right? To beat the crap out of a tweener. But otherwise, yeah, man. I don't know. This is the one that I'm least looking forward to. However, I do have to say that this one does have legs, because if you remember, back in July of this year, there was a data mine, and the data mine featured Ghost Rider, who we know Savage Avengers, Shang-Chi, we know Marvel Zombies. Who else do we have here? We have Juggernaut, Savage Avengers, Hellstorm, Savage Avengers, Mephisto, related to Savage Avengers. But yeah, unfortunately, Loki's right there. Yeah, no, Loki's right there. Yeah. So it's definitely possible that this is Loki's time for the Young Avengers. Unfortunate. Very unfortunate. Would be a pretty funny, not actually funny, but would be in Netmarble to do a bait and switch where it's like, hey, you can replace Loki with Hades. Everybody buys Hades for 6,600 crystals, tier 4s him, builds him up, and then a month later they're like, psych! And they release a Loki who's even better than before, scores even higher. Yeah, that's totally in Netmarble's wheelhouse to do some shit like that. So, unfortunately, that's a possibility. That's actually a strong possibility based on the fact that Loki's in Young Avengers and Loki's in the data mine. So just keep that in mind. If you haven't yet bought Hades, or if you haven't yet tier 4'd him, probably wait, what, 5 days? Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Yeah, wait 5 days. We'll find out on Tuesday through the patch notes. We'll actually find out a day earlier on Monday via the live stream with 3RL. But yeah, a little bit scary there. However, let's pivot back to something fun. The last character that I want to talk about, who I think is a big possibility for the Young Avengers update, is Nathaniel Richards. Now, some spoilers here for the comics. If you do not care, then just keep listening. If you do care, then close the video, obviously. That Nathaniel Richards, aka Iron Lad. Okay, so Iron Lad is his name when he is with the Young Avengers. And he's actually, apparently, Reed Richards' father. So he's the father of Reed Richards. He's Nathaniel Richards. And he goes on to become Kang. So if you guys, a lot of you know Iron Lad becomes Kang, or Iron Lad is like the OG Kang or whatever. But yeah, so Nathaniel Richards, Iron Lad, Reed Richards' dad, Kang. That's basically the timeline for this interdimensional, time traveler. So not interdimensional, just time traveler. So that's Kang. So could we be seeing like a Young Avengers, Nathaniel Richards, Iron Lad uniform and tier 4 upgrade for Kang? It's possible. It's possible. I think it's a little bit unlikely because it does completely change the look of Kang. As you can see here, this guy very much does not, like, I guess kind of with the green robes, kind of, but he doesn't have the blue skin. He doesn't have the purple helmet. He looks a lot different. And of course, if he looks like Iron Lad, he just looks like Iron Man, right? He looks like a bootleg Iron Man. He doesn't look like Kang. So I think the devs, I don't know, I could be wrong, but we don't see that many uniforms anymore where characters completely change, like do a complete 180. We do see some subtle changes, the zombieification, etc., but those uniforms that completely transform a character into an unrecognizable version of them, kind of gone. I mean, this is probably the most recent example, but we don't get very many of these, and it's usually for characters who have basically exhausted all of their other options, right? Like for Hulk, they don't really have a lot of options for looks, whereas for Kang, they have a lot of looks that still look like Kang, right? There's so many Kang variants that still, you're like, oh yeah, that's Kang. Whereas with Iron Lad, not so much. He just looks like a human dude. But yeah, for Kang, you've got a bunch that are basically just Kang, right? So, I mean, we'll see. I would like, personally, if you're asking me, I would like Kang to get a uniform in a tier 4. I think that'd be awesome. That's a new, native tier 4. Not native tier 4, like a native character getting tier 4. Native tier 3 getting tier 4. But, we'll have to wait and see. And there are, I guess, some others for Young Avengers, excuse me. But I'm not really, I'm very low on their stock. And I don't think that they have a good chance of getting added to the game. I guess Kate Bishop is the only other one that I didn't touch on. I just personally don't like her. But yeah, obviously, we mentioned in the last video, Kate Bishop has a strong possibility of getting a uniform in a tier 4. Or just a uniform, maybe. Because she's a premier member of the Young Avengers. Very often, referenced in that core group with Wiccan, Hulkling, and Chavez. So yeah, those are my opinions. Those are my takes. Those are my projections, speculations, whatever you want to call them. Dice rolling for the update. We're going to see probably another sneak peek tonight, and then we'll probably see the rest in the live stream on Monday. Hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know who you expect to see from the Young Avengers. Smash the like button if you enjoy the content, and thank you so much for watching, especially all you guys that were sending me your YouTube Wrapped and then seeing my name in the top 5. It's it blows my mind still 9 years later. It's extremely humbling. Thank you so much. I don't deserve to have my name anywhere near you know, titans of content creation like the ones I've seen, Kitboga, Markiplier, etc. But it means a lot to me that you guys would watch after 9 years. So yeah, thanks guys, appreciate you. Have a good holiday. Not that I'm leaving or anything, but yeah. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care.